Now, back in the olden days, when my family first settled in this holler, been almost 200 years ago, they hewed out their old log houses with an axe, and they built their big barns to store their crops in and so their animals could take shelter. They had to build corn cribs to protect their corn and let it dry down so they could take it to the mill and get it ground up for cornmeal to make bread out of. Had to store a year's worth of corn at a time. Sometimes they might run out of corn before the next year's corn was dry. What are they going to do then? Well, that's what we're going to do today. And the kind of corn they'd raise is dent corn, open pollinated field corn. Something that would dry out hard, and they'd grind it between two millstones to make their cornbread. But if they run short on corn, and they didn't have enough to get them through till the corn dried the next winter, they had to figure out some way to make bread. Me and Robert was talking a while back, and he reminded me about how his grandma gritted corn too. I'm getting ears of corn that's laying on the ground that's fell down because they need to be got up, and they'll be less dry than them up on the stalk. The time to get corn for gritting is after it starts to dry and it's still soft, but before it gets too hard. I really like digging taters. I always have. It always seems to me like you're hunting buried treasure. When them big old taters come out of there, boy, it just makes you happy to see them and think about how good they're gonna be. They told me my great-great-grandpa, Joe Hardy, eat taters every morning for breakfast, fried taters. And he growed them, I think, up on the little old sidling hillside tater patch. Plowed them with his horse or mule, planted them, tended them, and then dug them in the fall of the year. And had taters all winter into the next year. There used to be an old record around here that they'd play, and it talked about these two old men that got stuck in a blizzard, and one of them went to town and come back, and they said he brought back 6 bushels of taters and 2 gallons of white liquor, corn liquor. He got back and went in, and the other old man said, "What in this world are we going to do with all them taters?" If you're going to have corn and taters, one of the best compliments you can give it is to fix you a big old pan of mustard greens to go right with it. And I wanted to ask you, have you ever been hit in the face with a mustard green? The old people used to call it sallet, S-A-L-L-E-T or S-A-L-A-T. I guess they got that name from poke salad, which is about the first green you get a hold of in the spring of the year to eat. These mustard greens, they got a little froze on the end, some of them, when it come that hard freeze the other day. I'm just picking out the ones that got bit pretty bad and getting the best ones to take to the house. That's something I like to have through the winter is greens if I can. I try to cover them up when it gets real cold. I didn't cover these up. It didn't seem to hurt them too bad. Now we got some old-timey mustard greens that grows wild around here. They always have, I guess, as long as we've been here probably. And they're a real dark-colored, coarse-looking mustard green, and they're the real old-timey, probably the first ones ever in here. And I really like them. They're tougher than, say, you broadleaf or you tender green. They're a lot tougher. And these here, they didn't even get, it was down to 19 degrees and they didn't even get bit hardly. So I guess they've just, from growing in these mountains, they've got, I guess, tougher maybe. And I always, every year, let them go to seed, and well, they come back next year. Every year they just come back. And it's always a blessing when you got food growing. You didn't even have to do no work. It's just kind of like eating wild. They just kind of grow wild around here, and it's good to have them. I never did like to mow my grass off short in the fall. I like to let it bush out for the winter, and you got a ground cover over the winter. I feel like everything does better that way. My garden's always rich, and the redworms is happy. That's just something I like to do. It may not look as good as some of these places that stays mowed off all winter, but I think it's better for the ground to be covered up and protected. There used to be an old saying people used to say a lot, and we still do around here. They'd say, "What are we going to have for supper tonight?" They'd say, "Poke and grits, I guess." Somebody'd say, "Poke salad and corn grits." I'd say, "No, poke your toes under the table and grit your teeth." And carrots is something else I like to grow. They're a little tedious to grow, and they won't grow if everything ain't pretty much right, but when they do grow, well, you can grow them early, late. They're good for the fall garden or the early garden, and they're just tough. I say, it was 19 degrees here the other day, and these just didn't hurt them a bit. Their tops are fine. Probably throw some straw over them, and they'd do even better. I like to have kale growing about all the time. It does real good through the winter too, and boy, it's good for you. They say it's real good for you. I like to just eat it or make a kale salad or cut it up in something. It's good about any way you eat it. So when anybody says, "Justro, you like kale?" I say, "Kale, yeah." If you've got any trees around where you live, you just about don't ever have to make kindling wood. I can pick up enough little old sticks for when I need kindling, which I don't need much kindling because I don't never let my fire die down too far. But I pick up enough kindling to do what I need to do, a kindling a fire, get one started back or something once in a while. But just under the trees, they throw it down to you. All you got to do is just go pick it up. If you get any leaves up to start your fire with, make sure you get the ones right off of the top, the ones that's standing up tall. They'll be dry where them under them won't. anytime I'm shucking corn, I'm bad to look at every ear and see how it looks and notice different things about it, how tight the shuck is, and different things that might make it good for seed. Or this Hickory King corn, I'm always looking for 8-row ears. It's got 8 rows of grains on the cob, and I'll keep that for my pure seed stock. And also making hominy, I want that 8-row ears because the grains are a lot wider, and I like my hominy to be the big wide grains. It makes it better to me. Now, after you cook your greens, you've always got some good pot liquor in the pot left over. And I try not to waste that stuff because it's got a lot of good nutrition in it, and it's good for you, and a lot of that comes out of your greens, and I always try to use it if I can and get the good out of it. And back in the olden days, like I said, my family settled in here. They had to hunt a place for a good spring, and that's where they wanted to be close to. They had to have water to live, and they'd find a big spring, and that's where they'd build their homestead. And they'd go out to the spring, and as a lot of them didn't even have a spring house, they just had a kind of a pool made, a little dipped out pool, and they'd take a water bucket and just dip water right out of that pool to carry into the house. That's what they'd use to cook and what to drink. Now, when you're cooking in a wood cook stove and oven, you have to turn your biscuits or your cornbread around about halfway through, because they'll get done on the far box side quicker, and they won't be as done on the outside. So about halfway through, you need to turn them around so it'll brown even. And don't be too stingy when you're greasing the pan. You want to pick your cornbread up?
That's good.